All right. Thank you. Now I'm going to turn around and make Richard the host. Richard, there you go. Let me see. I'm going to make you the host. Again, when you get done, you can revert back to me. I'm going to make you the host here.
I will do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Hari.
Yeah. Here you go.
Let me share my screen. And
I haven't been doing introductions. I did have your bios. Richard is really active with the Sierra Club, and he is a volunteer team manager of the Sierra Club's climate emergency mobilization teams, and his team works to support and enable climate activists to implement local actions to reduce emissions and remove carbon in the atmosphere. His team is national in scope and works collaboratively with other organizations. Go ahead, Richard.
Perfect, Hari. Thank you so much. I just want to second Rand's comments about this being a great event, and I wanted to thank you for asking me to share some of the work that I've been doing and some of the work that our team has been doing.
Thank you.
Again, just to reiterate what Hari said, my name is Richard Rollins. I'm a team manager, volunteer team manager for Sierra Club's Climate Emergency Mobilization team. And I can be reached by email at the email address shown on the screen, climateemergency@sfbaysc.org. And I'll talk later about our team's website, which is at the bottom of the screen.
Can everybody else mute themselves, please?
Thank you, Ari.
Oops, some noise coming from some side. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, we'll try and address it. Thank you.
So what I want to do this evening is just spend a few minutes talking about who we are and what we do, and then I want to turn our attention to review a couple of the resources that our team has prepared and making available for climate activists. As noted on the previous slide, our team works to build a movement that is responding to our climate emergency. We currently have members in 21 states, and I'm glad to see Cliff Cockerham here this evening from Tennessee. We maintain a discussion listserv and a website, and on our website we share news, ideas, success stories, and lessons learned that we think might be valuable to other climate activists. We also have a presence on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and you can follow us there if you want to stay current with some of our work. The resources that we make available to climate activists include educational resources, a toolkit of examples of local actions that have already been implemented by governmental jurisdictions, and tools to help write effective climate emergency resolutions. I'll turn to these resources in just a moment, but I want to go to the next slide here and talk just briefly about the context in which we are working. And when I say we, I don't just mean our team. I mean all of us that are interested and concerned about our climate crisis. So this slide pretty much shows the challenge that we face. And this is, again, our current context. This slide was presented or prepared, the data here prepared by the Climate Center, which is a colleague or a partner organization based in Santa Rosa. And they are focused on getting to net zero by 2030. And this slide, I just want to talk about a couple of the details here. The vertical bars represent California's emissions year by year since the year 2000. The colors represent the sources of the emissions, and the lines to the right represent the rate of decline that's necessary to get to a particular net zero date. And there are two things that I want to speak about with regard to this slide before we go much further. First of all, if we go back to the top here, you can see that over the last decade or so, our emissions have been stabilized, and our business as usual approach is not giving us very much of a decline. And what that implies, as we might guess, is that we really need to change things in order to get on track to get to net zero. The second thing that I want to show you about this slide is, if you look at the blue line, which is transportation, that's the biggest source of emissions in California. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. It's followed our emissions trajectory over the last few years, and I'm guessing that Jack spent some time talking about that yesterday.
Richard, if you don't mind interrupting, Hari, can you just mute everybody, because you're the host? You can mute everybody. We're getting a lot of...
I'm not the host right now. I think Richard's the host.
Oh,
Richard, can you please mute everybody?
Yeah, let me see how if I can do that. Mute all. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Jack. That is helpful. So I need to do one thing here real quickly before I keep going. Okay, so I said that transportation is the source of the most emissions here in California. Second and third in terms of ranking are the industrial sector in the gray colors here, and electricity generation in the orange color. And as Jenna pointed out earlier, some of the greatest progress in California has been made as CCAs have come online and increased the amount of renewable production, which reduces our emissions. So I think the purpose of showing you this slide is that we really need to make dramatic changes if we're going to change our course to net zero. And so that sort of begs the question, what do we do to make those changes? And I want to switch briefly to our website page, which has some answers perhaps to how we can make those changes. And we use our website to share links and ideas that can help people address the climate crisis by finding a pathway to change in their own community. And I want to give 350 and Jack and Kathy Durbin, who's not here this evening, some credit, because I shouldn't say some credit, a lot of credit, because I became interested in the climate emergency movement shortly after Berkeley declared a climate emergency back in 2018. And it was about the same time that I found that our own electricity provider, East Bay Community Energy, was not even preparing to offer a 100% renewable product. And so after some discussions with Kathy and others, it became apparent that what was needed is some answers to questions about, well, now that we've declared a climate emergency, what do we do? And so that brings us to this web page, which is the result of a couple of years worth of work where we've got some answers to some of those questions. And don't worry too much about taking notes. I'm going to use the web page as sort of a source, but the link to our web page is at the top, and everything else that I'm going to talk about this evening you can find from that web page. So one of the first things that we need to understand is the severity of our problem and the underlying causes. And our answer to that question was to create a resource for climate activists that concisely summarizes the climate science that defines and describes our climate emergency. And so we have 7 videos that are linked on our webpage, and each of these videos looks at some of the important aspects of the science that underlies the climate emergency that we face. And those videos can be found at this link at the top of the screen. And the essence of the videos is to say that we need to reduce emissions and we need to remove climate pollutants from the atmosphere. And we need to do both, and we need to do them right now. Not next year, not after the next election, but we really need to focus on getting things done now. And so some examples of what we can do right now have been captured in a spreadsheet The spreadsheet includes a variety of information. The link that's on our webpage takes you to yet another webpage, and at the bottom of this page, you'll find a link to our website. Don't worry about the links. They're all, again, on the webpage. So if we go to the spreadsheet itself, what you'll find is, this is a Google Sheet. You can open it in Google Sheets or you can download it. But if you open it in Google Sheets, it'll look like this. Across the bottom of the screen will be a series of tabs. And if you look at the menu tab, along the left-hand side, the first column are names of economic sectors that are traditionally associated with climate action plans or identified as sources of climate emissions. And then when you click on one of the, these are all hyperlinks, and when you click on one of those links, it takes you to one of these tabs, and on the tab there are individual actions that represent ordinances or agency rules that have already been adopted, mostly here in California, some outside of California. And the whole idea of the web page, or excuse me, the website and this spreadsheet is to provide people, activists and elected officials with resources so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel time and time and time again. This website includes links to the individual ordinances or the initial ordinances. Whenever possible, we've added contact information for the city council members or the county supervisors that have been the authors of the ordinances. And then we try to include any additional information that might be media reviews of how things have turned out, how effective it is, what the local climate or the local community reaction has been. I think all told, we have about 75 different actions under each of the spread out over these 15 tabs on the spreadsheet. And I don't have enough time to dig any deeper into this collection of examples right now, but I want to invite anyone that's here that's interested to look through the the spreadsheet, excuse me. Don't be afraid. Some people are comfortable with spreadsheets and others are not, and I just encourage you to look through it, find something that's of interest to you or might be work in your community, and talk to your own elected representatives or other activists in your community and see if there's interest in pushing something forward. So that's all I want to say about that. As I mentioned earlier, there are a few resources that are on our webpage that show up as links. And the first one of those that I want to talk about is tools for writing a climate emergency resolution. And this was actually evolved from a resource that was developed by volunteers in Marin County. And it's recently been updated, and it's a pretty powerful tool for anyone that's interested in developing a resolution either for your own organization or for your own city or county. And the tool essentially includes a collection of whereas statements, which sort of set the context for the resolution, and then resolve statements, which represent commitments. And what's interesting about this resource is that since the resolved statements are taken from already adopted resolutions, most of which are here in the Bay Area, they really represent a growing consensus about the dangers that we face with a business as usual approach, as well as a snapshot of what activists in our own community are already doing to move us toward net zero. I'm just going to quickly review a couple of these other links. The second link here is a link to a resource in Australia where they've described how to make a resolution strong and effective. And they also reveal some of the language that's used in resolutions that are not so strong and not so effective. The third link in the left-hand column there is a link to the spreadsheet that we just talked about. The fourth link is to Sierra Club's new policy on climate resilience, CO2 removal, and geoengineering that was released last spring. And the second to the bottom is another link, which basically is a website version of a book that highlights model laws that can result in deep decarbonization. And I think there are about 1,000 different ideas collected there. And then the last link is to another grassroots network team that focuses on adaptation and restoration as opposed to climate emergency. So I'm going to end there, Hari. I just want to say thank you for inviting me this evening. Again, our website link is right here, bit.ly Sierra Club CEM, no spaces, capital letters as shown, and then you can reach me at this email address, climateenemergency@sfbaysc.org. And Hari, I'm going to make you host, and let's see.
Okay.
I need to stop sharing first, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me do that first. Stop sharing. There we go. Now I can make you host.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Thank you, Richard. Sorry we run a little over our time. We had some problems, as you see. I had to leave and come back again and again, at least a couple of times, and that delayed us. But now we're open to questions. Christina, you said there was already a question in the chat.
Yes, there was a question in the chat. Somebody wanted to have the impact of plastics on the environment discussed. Maybe single-use plastic, or I guess just any plastic.
Rand, you want to address that aspect of things? Are you knowledgeable about single-use plastics?
I think there is certainly some carbon release involved. The process is dirty. But anyway, my general impression is that the plastic waste is incredibly impactful. I mean, microplastics in the ocean is a deadly pollution that's just killing the ocean. I've proposed a concept, it's just an idea of converting the refineries into plastic. We don't recycle plastics at all, effectively, very, very, very small amounts. If we converted the refineries into true plastics, and I just saw that there's 100% recycling technology that the British naturalist endorsed, 100% steam. That's an approach that I would recommend, but I'd have to dig more into the specifics of the emissions from plastics. But yeah, it's a dirty process. There's some bioplastics that are cleaner, definitely.
Yeah.
Apple-based, that sort of thing.
One little thing I became aware of was BioWaste. In my house, I double bag all kitchen waste and put it in the green bin along with yard waste, and it goes to an industrial scale composting facility. But the thing is that most of the country is actually, they actually just dump. Most of us actually dump our kitchen waste in the regular garbage. And what that does is it goes to the landfill, and then the landfill keeps emitting methane. So if the whole world just took kitchen waste and did not allow it to go to the landfill and just put it, we would be cutting down our emissions of methane quite a bit. Cliff, you have your hand raised. Do you want to go ahead and?
Yeah, I put an item in the chat, which I'll read. It's regarding plastics. Although crude oil is a source of raw material or feedstock for making plastics, it is not the major source of feedstock for plastic productions in the U.S. Plastics are produced from natural gas, feedstocks derived from natural gas processing, and feedstocks derived from crude oil refining. Now, I'd like to endorse the comment someone just made about bioplastics and suggest the following. And I'd also heartily endorse the idea that plastics are really bad in terms of contributing toxins to the environment, as well as making a mess of landfills so that they produce more methane. But the real intersection point, I would say, is that getting rid of plastics is synonymous with making a healthier environment. And in terms of climate change, it is synonymous with keeping it in the ground. And so, I would suggest that the philosophy of keep it in the ground is not only good with respect to fossil fuels for the purposes of burning them, but it's good with respect to the philosophy of plastics. There's good news and bad news about plastic. It's here forever. Bad news, it's here forever. So let's only make it when we want it forever. That's my thought. Thanks.
Okay. That sounds good. Other questions? You unmute yourself before you ask the question.
Yeah, this is Steve Londo. I had a question.
When you do, just briefly intro where you're from and
Oh, yes, sorry.
just a sentence
I'm
about
Steve
yourself.
Londo, and I write books on democracy, and we have a monthly group, and Hari has kindly come to our group a few months ago and did a presentation on his book, which our members were very impressed with. So, yeah, just a quick question for Jenna. Did PG&E fight you? I would think they would put a lot of resources into trying to stop your efforts. You didn't mention anything about that. So can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when MCE first launched, as I mentioned, we were the first program in the state. So yes, PG&E actually did put a fairly large effort into combating MCE. They launched a $43 million anti-CCA campaign. To put that in comparison, our total startup cost was about $2 million. But since then, PG&E's come a really long way. About 60% of their service area is served by a CCA. And we partner with them really closely on a variety of programs to make sure that our customers have access to good services. But yes, that did happen at the beginning.
Thank you, Jenna. Other questions?
Yes, Nikhil wrote a question about consequences. So we know renewable energy, does still take a lot of resources, and so he was wondering about like any negative effects, like creating batteries for EVs.
They keep talking about the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, let's say from making solar panels. But my contention is once the whole energy system is all renewable, solar panels are going to be made with renewable energy. And everything's going to be made with renewable energy, all our hardware. So if we electrify everything or converted it into a combination of electrification and green hydrogen made from renewable energy, the impact in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions of renewable energy production will be zero, because we'll be using renewable energy for everything. And so this argument that the climate deniers come up with and say, hey, you're going to be giving out so many emissions in producing a wind turbine or solar panels. How about all that? Anyways, Cliff, you had a comment or question? Cliff Cockerham, or is that something you already said? You have your hand raised, Cliff? Did you want to speak, Cliff? I guess not.
I commented already about the
Oh,
plastics.
okay, yeah. All right. I just want to say that that's my answer in terms of impact. I think that
right. So
getting, handling our waste, going to 100% recycling society, recycling our plastics, recycling our paper. South Korea does a tremendous job of recycling about 80% of its paper. And then we covered something like animal agriculture, cut down on our consumption of meat would have an enormous impact on forests and agriculture and so on. Anyways, any other questions or comments?
There was a comment in the chat, a question about the long-term negative consequences about expanding usage of EVs, which goes to batteries, I guess the lithium-ion batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack probably has, and other folks probably have more information on the specifics of the rare metals involved, lithium and the rare materials. I don't have anything specific. I would say that the industry seems confident enough that it can be done, and I think I would guess that it's a matter of money, and that it needs to be done responsibly.
Jack, you're with us. Can you comment on that? He's a transportation expert.
Well, transportation engineer, retired, but EV enthusiast, and this does come up a lot. Two thoughts. One is, some people say, well, what about all the extra greenhouse gases involved in making the batteries? And yes, there are some extra. It is a little bit more carbon footprint of making an EV as opposed to an internal combustion engine car. But I did some calculations, and I think it takes about 6 months or less in terms of all the savings of all that CO2 that's put up in the air when you're driving and burning gasoline to make up for that. So that's a fairly minor issue. The bigger issue is the raw materials. And there again, if you compare, remember when you dig up oil, it has terrible consequences. It has all sorts of pollution. We have oil spills. We have everything, that everyone that lives near those oil wells is getting polluted. And when you burn the tank of gas, you have to go back and dig up some more. The good thing about lithium is, okay, you dig it up once and it lasts, 10 years or 20 years or something like that. So it's not, you continually recharge the battery. Now, that's not to excuse the fact that, mining for lithium is going to have impacts, and we got to deal with that, and we try to make it as socially responsible as we can. And I think those are all serious concerns, but I just don't think mining for lithium can be compared with mining for oil in terms of the overall impact, and certainly not in terms of the greenhouse gas impact.
Yeah, I talked in one of my talks about, and various other people talk about, is the dig, the burn, and the dump cycle of fossil fuels. Worst with coal, and it's so horrendous. I mean, it's like a magnitude of 1,000 versus if you look at lithium ion, maybe like it might be like 40 or 50 compared to 1,000 in terms of impact. And, oil instead of 1,000 might be at something like 600, and natural gas may be at 400. And I'm just ratioing them somewhat in terms of the relative greenhouse gas emissions for 1 unit of energy. But the amount of toxic waste, the amount of air pollution, India and China become currently, when they have the coal-fired power plants, they become like gas chambers. You land, one of my relatives landed in Delhi, and she said, she lives in India, and she said, oh my gosh, this place felt like a gas chamber, with a high level of pollution. And the same thing is true of Beijing. So the dig, burn, dump cycle people don't focus on. And once you have renewable energy systems in place, solar panels or batteries, you got done with the pollution aspect of it. And if you can produce them with renewable energy and then use them for a long period of time, they'd be not emitting carbon dioxide or methane emissions. So they are a lot more benign than fossil fuels.
Of course, yeah, there is no doubt and there is no dispute and that the EVs and the battery technology is really superior.
Richard, you had your hand raised. You wanted to say something? Richard?
I think
Yes.
Nikhil,
Go ahead, Richard.
No, I think Nikhil was still speaking. Before I start.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Nikhil, go ahead.
Yeah. So no, I was just agreeing with everybody that the usage of EVs and the battery technology is agreeably superior to the gas technology. It was just that the concern was that if there is enough raw materials available to enable and produce that sort of battery technology. But yeah, I got that part answered. Thank you so much.
Okay, go ahead, Richard.
Thank you, Hari. I think this is a part answer to the question we've just been speaking about that Nikhil brought up, but it also applies to everything that we're talking about. And that is, I think it makes sense for us to think about how we can conserve what we have, conserve the resources that we have, and not try to sort of do the same thing that we've been doing, live our same lifestyle without making some change. And so in Sierra Club, we talk about conservation first, efficiency second, and then start to talk about what the other solutions might be. And so I think that, I'll speak only for myself, but we've learned, we live a very privileged life. I live in Berkeley. I can ride my bike almost anywhere that I need to go, and I do. And we rarely drive our car. And I think it's actually been easy to make that shift. And I think I'm only saying this because I think it's something that we need to just all keep in the back of our mind, that the problem gets easier to solve if the problem gets smaller. And the problem will get smaller if we just conserve more and use less. Thank you, Hari.
You're welcome. The other thing I want to say is my book talks about aviation, tourism, and the military. We think nothing about, oh, we're going to go for a vacation to Europe or to Hawaii, and so off we fly. And we don't realize that one plane trip busts our carbon budget totally. And so you have to have solutions for aviation. I'm proposing, besides the concepts of this solar electric hydrogen highways and roadways, where we could actually use bikes, trikes, and quad bikes in addition to electric cars, that we have high-speed rail or rail transportation becomes totally electrified and based on solar, and we have high-speed rail ringing the corners of the earth. They're proposed all along the east coast of the United States, and two going, one a northern route and one a southern route. And you land from Europe into the United States, you only land in New York. You don't fly to Chicago. You fly to New York, and for the rest of the travel inside the United States, you're going by high-speed rail and train. You only use an electric car. The same thing you do when you go to Europe. You land in Spain and you don't go anywhere, fly any further, and you go around in low carbon, zero carbon transportation all around. So we in the Sierra Club love nature, but in order to go to nature, we shouldn't be having such high greenhouse gas emissions. And we are, in fact. So I've read about the fact that the places I visited have later on gotten devastated with climate-related disasters, whether it was Kauai Island in Hawaii, or whether it was Leh in the northeastern part of India and Ladakh, India. They get devastated. They've been having devastating events, and they've been occurring just a few months after I visit them. And so aviation and tourism really need to become green. And the global military, one flight by a training flight by a sortie by the military emits enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas emissions. So I've come up with ideas on how the global military should be greening itself. We really have to do that. And, you know, and many countries say they're green, and Norway says they're green, and yet they're exporting so much oil. And Australia says they're green, and yet they're exporting so much coal. So this kind of behavior has to stop, you know. And my whole effort to some extent is to focus on the total issue and say, hey, carbon dioxide emitted anywhere is a problem, and you got to come to grips with it. And hey, world, you need a global strategy. We have 190 nations. 190 nations need to, you know, the rich nations need to get their act together and then help the rest of the world. You have an island nation like Maldives imports enormous amount of diesel at a very high cost in order to power their hotels and buildings and the fishing industry, this thing for tourism. And they need renewable energy, and they need you know, solar and electric battery systems and hydrogen more desperately than we do. All the island states. So there's need to be some focus, and that's kind of, and I think California has been pioneering in a number of different areas. China is actually leading in a number of these electrification areas. So we need to get our own act together, and then hopefully try and be as a model to the rest of the world. I think if California, with only 400 million metric tons of emissions, and the world having something like currently 51,000 million metric tons, if California can be a model and help and teach the rest of the world, even if we get our emissions down from 400 only down to 100, we'll have, if we can help the rest of the world, then we will have done a great job. And that's kind of where I've been coming from. Anyway, that's kind of my book and so forth. But we have a good series of talks. We have talks tomorrow on Wednesday, and then we have on Friday we have Jack Fleck, who's here, is going to talk about clean and just transportation. I'll try to enhance what I'm talking about transportation issues. And then we have a student. Believe it or not, the electric utilities are trying to take away the benefit of rooftop solar. So the value of solar energy needs to be pointed out. There's a Michigan Technology University grad student who's going to educate us on the value of solar, so that we don't have the arguments of the utilities right now that net energy metering is taking away and is increasing the electricity rates for other customers. This kind of problem needs to be fought so that solar energy, we might need to even completely change the utility structure in the country, just like Bernie Sanders has said. Maybe we need power marketing administrations, like the Tennessee Valley Authority. We need utilities that are strongly into converting to renewables, not fighting it every step of the way like they're doing it right now. So all of these battles need to be finally won and accomplished. But the simple thing that keeps striking me is biological waste, if we can stop throwing it into the regular garbage, can be a small action that we can do. And Sierra Club is trying to get the communities in California to pass BioWaste laws. And if we can have industrial scale composting facilities, that would help a lot. Anyways, that's what I had. On Saturday, we have a really great event putting together for you, combining entertainment and poetry and arts, combined with, like I said, a couple of very good talks, one by Jan Kirsch of 350 Bay Area, talk about the effect of fossil fuels on human health. And then I'll be talking to, if somebody else is interested in a 5 or 10 minute inspirational speech, they can be added to that too. And Christina and I will put together a schedule for Saturday, which is a 2-hour program. We got my dance teacher to put together a
Yes,
6
very
minute
much looking forward to that.
6-minute dance video. So we have, what we're doing is we're saying, look at these guys, you know, Richard and Jack Fleck and Rand Roble, these are activists, and these are green champions, and Jenna Famila, these are green champions. And we should be celebrating. What are we celebrating? We are celebrating the fact that these courageous folks are fighting it out in the pits. And so and that's why I chose an upbeat thing for my book also, is Brighter Climate Futures. We got to get started now. Yeah, you're saying, Richard, now. But if we get started now, we'll have brighter climate futures. We'll have, pollution will be gone, and we'll have restored ecosystems, and we'll have a more beautiful earth. So things can be better. And or things can be 1,000 times worse. So that's a choice that we are going to be making now. But we got to get started now, and things will be a lot better. That's kind of, in a sense, my message. And I want to thank everybody today, all the speakers, and we have the videos recorded. I'm sure there'll be some interruption on the videos. I'll be trying to post the videos on YouTube, so that this will be available as a resource for you, as well as for us. And I already have 10 videos on YouTube. If you go to Brighter Climate Futures, Hari Lamba, you can see them. But I keep posting them as an educational resource. I hope to start an activity for high school students, but it would not just concentrate on my own things. It would also be something relating to other resources. Like I would point to resources of Richards or Rand Roble or 350 Bay Area and say, here are some resources, students, you can go to these resources and educate yourself about this, that, and the other thing. So hopefully like a directory of resources kind of thing, and make that available. So anyways, that's kind of my thing. I may have talked too much. I apologize. Anybody wants to say anything in conclusion?
Thanks.
You're welcome, Rand, and thank you so much, Richard, and thank you, Jenna. Jenna's still there, yeah?
I am, yes. Thank you for having me.
We look forward to cooperating with you, Jenna, and I certainly am part of Sierra Club, and I look forward to doing that. And 350 Bay Area, thanks, getting to know you, and let's struggle and fight together for what definitely would be a better world. Thanks much, guys.
Thank you, Hari.
Thank you.
Take care, and
Thanks, Hari.
please keep my website will keep posting the Zoom links for every day. So if you are interested in tomorrow, Wednesday, just go to brighterclimatefutures.com, and right on top you'll see the program for the day and the Zoom link. If you somehow miss it, I'll try and post it. I'll try and mail it out to you folks if I have your emails. Thank you, guys.
Okay, and Harry, I was trying to find the recording. I don't see it anywhere in the Zoom.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to have to, we'll have to make up for it some way, Rand.
Okay.
I'll do with what I have and edit it and create a video. All right?
All righty. Yeah, I did record it. It said recording, so.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, it comes up and says, if you want to convert, I don't know. But if you don't see that, that means we've lost that part of your presentation. Okay?
All righty.
Sorry about that.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you.